All right. Yeah, so my name is Miles Mabey. I'm an entrepreneurial catalyst here. And so I've done a lot at ASU, so that's why my introduction is going to be so long. So I'm a super senior in the TEM program. I've been on Poly for 6 years now. Previously, I was robotic engineering for 3 years, so half the time engineer, half the time TEM. I'm the current president of the Urban Gaming Club. I'm a keen entrepreneurial catalyst, and then was the co-founder of Pheromone Robotics, which we'll talk more about later, which was disbanded, and Blaster Skins, which I'll talk about later too. I also do production, line, and product design consultancy, and I was a researcher for a lot of time in there with some publications and provisional patents, which we'll talk about that too, because this is about my journey, so we'll talk about all that stuff. But I wanted to get into the meat of it really quick. So this is my Willis moment / concept, was I wish I had learned not to let my resume govern what I do. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of events, opportunities, projects that I agreed to for the only reason of I wanted to put it on my resume. I didn't really enjoy the project. I didn't necessarily learn as much from the project, but I was like, it's a resume item, so I'm going to do it. And so we'll talk more about those in particular. But that's like my Willis, is that I did a lot of things because I was like, it's a resume item, and that's the only reason I did them. Now, my disclaimer that I have to say is that the resume is still important. I'm not saying your resume is not important. Your resume is important, and it should look nice, and it should communicate. But it should be things that you enjoy doing and you like, not things you don't like doing. So this is an overview of the journey through ASU, and I know it's chaotic, and that's on purpose. It's chaotic because I was chaotic. A lot of these overlapped, a lot of them, the timing wasn't great, stuff like that. So it's chaotic because I was chaotic. So when I came to college, I knew 3 things. I wanted to travel internationally, I wanted to build things, and I needed a good resume. I knew those 3 things. Well, I mean, I knew some other things, but those are the top 3 things I knew. And so you can see a lot of the opportunities that will be mentioned later in this journey go to those 3 points. So when I started college, I got into the Barrett and the Grand Challenge Scholars program. Right off the bat, that's one of those things you apply as a high school student and start as a freshman. Then I got involved with the Urban Gaming Club freshman year, just as a moderator, not as the president, which I built a tank as part of that, so there's where the building starts to come in. Then, the summer after my freshman year, I found an opportunity through Changemaker Central to go to Turin, Italy, to do the European Innovation Academy, which has grown a lot since when I did it. They only had a couple sessions when I did it, but now they're in like 5 different countries, and they are doing tons of sessions every summer. Basically what it is they do a 3-week intensive entrepreneurship camp. You go to this location, so for me it was Turin, Italy, and you spend 3 weeks working on a mock startup that hopefully will become a real startup, just doing entrepreneurship. And they have like lots of speakers and workshops, and it's a really like intense but really knowledge-gaining event, which was really cool. And I only found out about that because I saw a flyer on a table at one of the pitch competitions. Like, it was such a random, like, oh, what's this flyer? I'm going to go do that. I was one of like 3 ASU students who went that year, and I'm sure ASU sent a lot more since then. But it was a great opportunity, and it kind of planted the seeds for entrepreneurship. Then, as you can see, that came to fruition. I did Pheromone Robotics. So Pheromone Robotics was a search and rescue autonomous drone startup. So we were focused on creating drones that would be able to be used in the field, but were super user-friendly, so you only had to press like 1 or 2 buttons and the drone would do the rest. There was, the team fluctuated, but we generally had about 4 people on the team. All engineers. We pitched for a lot of ASU competitions, so E-Seed, the Changemaker Challenge, those kind of things, which all opportunities open to you guys that you'll hear about later. All in all, we won $10,000 from ASU through 3 different competitions. And yeah, I worked on that for about a year and a half. And then we kind of hit a stopping point where we realized that we didn't quite have the time and knowledge to completely pull off what we wanted to do. And then there was a lot of drama, and half the startup wanted to drop out of college to work on this full time when we didn't even have a prototype. And the other half, which I was one of them, was like, I'm not giving up an education for this. So the company disbanded, and it was still a really good opportunity, and I learned a lot. Then I was like, well, what am I going to do now? And once again, I was like, it was a resume item, and I was like looking around, and there was a lot of research that Poly does. So I got in with a bunch of different labs. Okay, not a bunch, 2 labs. And I did research labs for about 2.5 years. I jumped between 2 different labs, and I, through that, published 3 papers, and we did a provisional patent. So some of those projects, which I'll talk about later, were mostly just resume items. I didn't really have fun. I was doing a lot of math, and I don't like math. But it was a resume item, and that was my whole rationale for doing it. Then through another program, I did a month in Kenya. We were camping there. 8 of us engineers and 8 social scientists camping in Kenya for a month, and we were identifying different engineering projects for Capstone people to do. So that was a really cool opportunity. Once again, goes with the travel category of things I wanted to do. And it was great because it was like 80 degrees over there, but it was 120 here. So we were all like, this is wonderful. And all the Kenyans were like, but it's so hot here. And we're like, no, it's not. It's not hot here. So that was a really fun opportunity, and we got to meet people from different cultures and engineers from different cultures, and we learned a lot through that. Then I took a class, and one of the projects was called Solar Spell. Basically, it's, for the engineers in the room, it's a solar panel powered Raspberry Pi that has a bunch of educational content. You can connect to it via Wi-Fi, a local Wi-Fi. So that project I was on for about a year and a half as well. A lot of these overlap, so that's why I didn't even try to put the timeline, because I didn't want to have to figure that out. So for that I did a couple travel, but also I got my feet wet with production line parts. So they had these build days where we would have a bunch of volunteers from the community come in, and we would have to build 100 or 150 of these solar spells in one day with these random people from the community. So being kind of the lead engineer on the project at the time, I took that on as a project. So we designed how the production line would go, how different rigs so that people could be more accurate, and that whole thing. And that was actually really fun. And we got it to the point where both times we did these build days, we ended early because we were so efficient. And so that's where I learned that I really liked doing production line type work. And there's pictures of that later. So I was on that project for a while, and then I wanted to do more entrepreneurship stuff related to that, and that was more for fun. Like, I already had a lot on my resume at that point, but I was like, I want to do more like for-profit venture type work because I hadn't done very much entrepreneurship since Pheromone, and the project didn't support that, so I left the project. And then right around that time, I also became a Keen EC, which was great because it was an entrepreneurial catalyst, and I got to meet with students like you guys and talk about their ventures and stuff like that, which you'll be more introduced to entrepreneurial catalysts in a different presentation. And so right around this time, I was still a robotic engineer, and I started to do the junior level time to hunt for internships and stuff. And here's where we start to have kind of that Willis moment, is I have a lot of stuff on my resume, and I was searching for internships and interviewing, and I realized everyone, when I said I was a robotic engineer, all the industry people said, oh, you can program. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't like to program. And they were like, but you can program. So that's why I started to realize maybe I wasn't heading in the right direction, and maybe the stuff that was on my resume wasn't actually helping me find a job that I liked, because a lot of the places I was interviewing with were like, so you can program. And I'm like, that is not a good first question when I don't want to program. So then I also, during that summer, did a bunch of summer camps. Once again, opportunity. It was a little bit of money, but I was like, oh, let's see if I like teaching. The answer is no, I don't like teaching. I can teach, I don't like to teach, especially middle schoolers. Yeah, so that was another one of those opportunities that was great, and I'm glad I did it once, but it's not going to go on my resume because I'm not teaching for the rest of my life. So then I started realizing that maybe engineering wasn't for me because all the job opportunities were all programming and math, and I didn't like programming and math. So I switched to the TEM program because it was more the entrepreneurship, because I have fun with entrepreneurship. That's something I want to do. Oh yeah, I also became the president of the Urban Gaming Club. So I did that for a little bit, and then over this last summer, I volunteered to do some research for a research lab, and I was reinforced that I don't like doing research as much. Research is great, and you can learn a lot, but a lot of those things don't fulfill all the way out to market. They stay within the university, and they have papers published on them, but it never gets to market. And as the entrepreneur that I am, I want to get things to implement to market, because you can develop all you want in the lab, but it just stays there, which is fun while you're in the lab, but then boring once you leave. So I did that, which was all right. Then I started to do more of the my current startup and consultancy. So I started consulting for a group called HatTech, which you're going to hear from right after me. They're also here. Hi guys. So they had some production line needs and some product development needs, and so I was consulting with them. And they have a large format printer, and they were like, Miles, we need more products that use vinyl. That's my prompt, and so I'm sitting there thinking. And so all this time I had been doing all the Urban Gaming Club, which does a lot of Nerf events with Nerf blasters, and I was like, wait, why don't we wrap Nerf blasters in vinyl? So there's an example over here, if I can grab. So that's an example of an idea that I had while doing like a consultancy that led to an actual startup. So that's that. You can, afterward, you can come up and see this in more detail if you want. So that's a product that I spearheaded development, and hopefully will be in the market in the next 2 months. So that's like kind of that opportunity that, it was an opportunity that went down a rabbit hole and ended up in an even better opportunity. Oh yeah, and then I ended up at today, here. So like I said, very long, chaotic journey that I did a lot of things, because I always like to try things once and see if I like them. And so that's where I have lots of things. Now some of these I stuck with longer than just a try, so we'll talk about that later. Okay, so why I did so many things. I'm not crazy, I swear. Okay, maybe a little. So, like I said, I like to try new things to see if I like them. But also, I really was worried when I came to college. I was really worried about having a good resume. I didn't want to graduate and just have a degree and like one internship and a capstone project and like that's all that's on my resume. I was like, I need to have a good resume. So, whenever an opportunity came up, I said yes, which led to a lot of stress and sleepless nights trying to complete everything for all the projects I'd said yes to. So that's why I did so many things. And you can see here, there's the little kids all running around. I was the only instructor, so that was not fun. And then research, like I said, I did a lot of things. And so what I've kind of learned, back to the Willis moment, is don't stress so much, especially at ASU when you have so many opportunities. Because right now, I have too many things to put on my resume. Like I can't fit it all on one page. I can barely fit it on 2 pages. I justify that because they say, 10 years of experience for 1 page, and I'm 24 years old, so that's 2 decades, right? Yes. Not how it's supposed to work, but that's what I do. And another thing that I've learned through this is, like I kind of hinted to, if you don't want to do it full time, maybe don't put it on the resume. And now, some things, they show, grit, they show other skills besides just the actual thing. But like I said, when I was searching for engineering internships, they all looked through the whole resume of everything and they picked out coding. And they were like, you can code. And I'm like, that is not the goal of my resume, is to convey that I can code. Because yes, I can, but I don't want to. So that's where sometimes, like especially at the summer camps or things that I really would not want to do again, I don't even put it on my resume. unless there's a specific reason or I have a specific reason to talk about it in the interview, and that I'm not applying for a job that will want me to teach for the rest of my life. And then this last point is that do things you enjoy and still put those on your resume, because if you enjoyed it as a college student, you might be able to get a job doing it. There's people who are out there and their job is to make Lego sculptures, like slightly jealous, so you never know what your job can kind of turn into or what sort of things, you could get paid to do. Okay, so now I'm going to go through some specific examples. So some examples of things that were really good opportunities was starting in engineering. I actually don't regret that I started in engineering and then switched majors later. Like, yes, that added several years onto my graduation, but it gave me a good basis in being able to build things, where if I'd gone straight into the TEM program, I would have a lot less experience with electronics, fabrication, and those kind of things, which is really handy when you want to be, a product design consultant. So I don't regret that at all. The GCSP program, I got to do quite a few different travel opportunities through that. In fact, not to brag, but in a couple weeks I'm going to London for 11 days for them, so that's kind of cool. A lot of opportunities have come through that program. Once again, the European Innovation Academy, that planted the seeds for entrepreneurship and really helped me find something I love doing, so don't regret that. Pheromone robotics, even though it failed, a lot of people like to say that you learn more from your failures than your successes, and we learned a lot through that fail. Solar spell, for obvious reasons, that's a picture of me explaining. So we have a bunch of random people and we're about to hand them sharp objects and we say, don't cut yourself. It's basically what that was. And then HatTech, for obvious reasons, because that led to product development and developing a new product. Opportunities that were less than ideal. Staying in robotic engineering. I probably could have switched sooner and still had as much knowledge as I do now and graduated sooner. But like I said, I don't necessarily regret that. The summer camps, I probably could have done something better with my summer than teach middle schoolers STEM, which they learned a lot, which was great, and they had fun. I didn't have fun. I could have done other things. Some of the research labs, so like this project, which looks cool on the surface, but that robot never moved. It was supposed to move and it didn't move. So I spent like a whole semester working on these little epugs and never really got them to do much. So I learned a lot from that project because it was a failure, that my time probably could have been better spent on other projects that were maybe more successful. It was a very programming heavy research project, and I was not a very strong programmer at the time, so it was a bit out of my league. Other research labs, like the volunteer one, that was a lot of time that went in that I didn't necessarily get much back out. So there's, you're always going to have those kind of opportunities. You put time in, you don't get much back out. But, you tried it. You can say that you tried it, and you can say that you did it. And then Barrett, I don't know if there's any Barrett kids in the room, but there's kind of a lot you do freshman year and a lot you do senior year. And in the middle of that slump, I got really busy and decided that it wasn't for me. I was already doing so many other things, so I dropped out of that. Tips about your journeys. So volunteering, so a lot of people will say, oh, if you want to get a job somewhere, volunteer there. And I never really put any stock into that until I volunteered somewhere, and then they offered me a job. And I was like, wow, I didn't want the job. But it was nice of them that they offered me a job after I volunteered for a few months. So actually, volunteering can lead to a job. I didn't realize that was physically possible, but it is. So, keep that in mind. If it's no longer fun and you aren't learning or progressing on your journey, stop doing it. I did that a lot, where I had to take a step back and I realized that I was just still plowing forward on a project and I wasn't learning anymore, and I definitely was not having fun. And so it was time for me to move on to something new that would be fun. So some of those research projects were like that, where felt like I was beating my head against the computer trying to get code to work, and I'm like, wait, why am I here? Why am I doing this? So sometimes it's good to ask those questions. There'll be some sacrifices along the way. It's always hard to let go of a project that you put a lot of time into, but sometimes it's time to let that project go. And then also there's a lot of sleepless nights, which I know everyone in the room can relate to. And then the biggest one, which I know is kind of a cliche statement, but time and scheduling management is very important, and to be organized. I definitely would not have been able to do everything that I have been able to do if I didn't have pretty good time management skills and task management skills, because when you start saying yes to everything, there's a lot of stuff you got to do. So you got to figure out how to make time and schedule things so that you can do all that stuff. And I don't know if anyone's timing me, so I have no clue if I went over 10 minutes, but.
I am timing you.
Oh, okay.
More important.
Yeah.
The way this is, again, these sessions are supposed to work. We have the guest speaker come in. In this particular case, it was Miles. Now let me ask you this question. Do you think it was good to have a student of his level of experience come in and share with you as fellow students what he's gone through, what, 6 years?
Mm-hmm. 6 years.
Was that important?
Okay.
Yeah? You guys can't always. So that's what we're trying to do here. I know you're here for your degree, but trust me, I want you here for more than just your degree. I want you here for the ASU experience. I think at one time we used to call it the Fulton experience. And ASU is more than your journey degree. Because what Miles talked about was his journey through. So we want you all to have a journey to discover your it, or plural, its. Okay, that's why we're here. So that's what we're trying to do with these events, this particular semester.
All right, so my name's Dominic.
My name is Christian Joseph.
And we're the owners of a company called HatTech. Now, what we're about to show you is, Miles, where are we at? Okay, yeah, it doesn't work. Yeah, so what we're about to show you is hands down the coldest hat storage device that you or I have ever laid eyes on. And yes, that's a real review. Now, I'm willing to bet everybody in here has either owned or worn a hat at some point in your life. Hats are an extension of your personality. And when you wear a hat, it tells the whole world about who you are. But the problem today is, oh man, hold on, sorry. 1 second. It's been a while, I'll tell you. So when you buy a hat, you want that hat to look new and clean for as long as possible. But currently, the only things on the market today to store and display your hats are hooks, nails, or over-the-door hangers, all of which store the hat at a central point which stretch, damage, and deform your hat shape over time, leaving there no real solution for hat owners to correctly store their hats anywhere they want in order to prevent damage and store their and show off their collection. Well, not anymore. Welcome to HatTech. HatTech is the world's first and only stick anywhere, fully customizable, damage-free headwear hanger designed specifically to keep the curve. Now, in a side-by-side analysis, you can see the clear advantage of our product over our competitors. When we look at the hat market, we see an annual revenue of $5.2 billion at a 6% annual growth projected to hit $7.2 billion at a 6% annual growth projected to $9.5 billion by 2022. Over 500 million hats are made and sold in the U.S. alone, and 50 million of them are fitted baseball hats, leaving there a huge opportunity for our product to strive. Now, 2 years ago, we stood at SkySong and won $9,500. So when we got that money in, we said to ourselves, we don't want to be another ASU started without doing anything with this. So we walked right into Hat Club. Hat Club is one of the largest hat retailers in the U.S., and they have 23 stores nationwide. They're located right in Tempe. They loved our story and product so much that they ordered a couple thousand units for the holiday season, but only gave us 8 weeks to deliver it. Now you can imagine, with me and Christian being in school full-time and also working and trying to make this thing 8 weeks with 3D printed prototypes to an actual in-market, in-retail store was almost near impossible. But, yeah, to say the least. But we made it happen. We stayed up countless nights. We have help from a lot of other ASU students, and we delivered it to them a day before the due date of it. Now, since then, we launched on our e-commerce platform on Black Friday, and about a week after that, we said, cool, we launched, we got in Hat Club, we launched our website. Now what? So we start cold calling anyone and everyone. So we cold called a company called Plate Crate. They're the biggest baseball player subscription box in the market, and they loved our product so much that they made us the January featured product. So we got in over 2,000 boxes all over the United States, and since then, we said, what else can we do? So we do a lot of promotional products. We got in with the University of Arizona bookstore, so if you guys don't feel like going to Arizona State anymore, you want to go to U of A, they have our product. But we're also on Amazon Prime, so we launched on Amazon, figured out how Prime works, and got on there, and now within 3 weeks we were a top 10 bestseller, and right now we range from the 13th bestseller to like the 18th bestseller. And so pretty awesome experience throughout the whole thing. And what we need going forward is we need to cut our production costs. We already filed our design patent. We pitched in the fall, so we won some money for that. And we need a new injection molding process, so we're here today to pitch for $1 million to help have us grow to achieve these new things. We also have a marketing budget that's almost little to none, and there's only so many Luis Gonzalez's of the world that will just take your product and post it on their Instagram for free before you actually have to start paying for influencers. So we're here to pitch for some money, to get a marketing budget, to increase our production line, buy some new molds so that we can make these cheaper, faster, and so on and so forth. Once again, my name is Dominic. I'm the CEO. This is Christian, our CTO. And we have one other business partner, Brett. He takes care of all of our molding, injection molding, manufacturing needs, and he's our Chief Operating Officer. We're HatTech. Thank you. And once again, normally, if you're doing venture levels, it's not that when Wayne was at our pitch, it was like we had it down to a T. So if you guys pitch in venture levels or anything like that, that's a basic overview of kind of what worked for us. We've won over $15,000 from ASU. We got disqualified 1 year because they couldn't open our videos. So if you're going to apply for venture levels, if you're going to apply for venture levels and go through with it, make sure they can do everything. Make sure there's no hiccups in it, because just like any other thing in business, it's cut and dry, and you got to make sure. Yep.
We'll show you everywhere. He's amazing with that.
So let me open up the discussion. I'll kind of lead it. What is your Willis moment? Wish I learned it sooner, going through this whole process you went through. Not only venture levels, but what you learned is opening up a company and generating revenue. So what you tell us?
Man, there's so many. Only one? Okay. I think this one came to mind when I was listening to the pitch again, is that we were so hard set that this HatTech was meant for a certain segment of people, just for like hat wearing people. But then there was one company, or not a company, it's this massive organization called ASI, and they deal with promotional products all the way up there. So you know how you go to any event, you have these squishy balls with the marketing or the brand or whoever, or even these right there on the front of the table, that if you look at it, or even those fidget spinners, it says ASI number. It's like a massive company. And it wasn't until later that we found out that our product is actually capable of being something else. But we were so hard set that it had to be this way, or just has to be in this little box. So just being open-minded and acceptable to change, because that's in business, it changes 24/7. It could be within a week or in a day. So yeah, basically being accepted to change. And that was our Willis moment. It's like, oh my God, we can be in this bigger market that we didn't even think of, and kind of actually really, really helped us.